maybe this is your bread and butter. Bring me your most challenging application and where you're struggling the most. Let's fix that. And then you'll get used to working with us. You'll get used to our technology, realize all the benefits it brings at the field and reliability phase, but also on the manufacturing side, where we believe we can offer enhanced protection at a lower overall solution cost.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. Today I have Jeremy Garbacik with me. He is the Senior Vice President of North America at actnano, which is a company that's really making some waves in the electronics industry, really in the electronics protection space. So they've developed a custom coating that can coat the entire circuit board, all the components, and really protect it in a lot of automotive applications and other applications. Jeremy, you'll get into some of that. Welcome to Manufacturing Insider, Jeremy. Excited to chat with you.
Great. Thanks for hosting us, Nate.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. I think what you guys are doing is awesome, and I really like to talk to any company that's really changing things up from the way that they used to be done in a much more productive way. So it's really cool. Before I get too far into it, I'd like to just say to the audience, if you enjoy this episode and want to hear more from Manufacturing Insiders, please hit that subscribe button. Give us a like, give us a share, listen to us on your way to work. If you are a leader in manufacturing and you're interested in sharing on Manufacturing Insiders podcast, you have some insights that would be valuable to other leaders, please go to manufacturinginsiders.com, fill out the form there, and we'd love to have you on. So Jeremy, tell me about this coating. What's unique about it, and what are you guys doing?
So conformal coating has been around for many decades, and it's a hard viscous material. Ours is a gel state material, which allows properties not offered with previous generation technology. So because it's in a gel state, we have the ability to coat connectors. And when you actually mate the connector, it displaces the material and allows you to make a sound electrical connection. So where keep out zones were a big problem previously, and we kind of call it holes in your umbrella. You have a lot of keep out zones. You can coat this area, but not that area. You can coat, some ICs, integrated circuits, but not the connectors. So that really leaves you prone and open to potential failure modes from different environmental conditions, such as salt and humidity and engine coolant and these types of different chemicals. So by being able to coat the connectors themselves and the entire PCB, this allows you to now protect 100%, increase your reliability, and lower field risk.
Right. And without a lot of the tedious, expensive, time-consuming masking, and then obviously the limited protection of just doing a portion of it in the first place. Can you give me a little bit of background on yourself? You have a pretty extensive background in the automotive space and in some other sales position. I believe you're an electrical engineer, right?
Correct. So my official background is electrical engineering, and that's my trade. I came up through design and then went to field applications and then went to technical sales in the semiconductor world for 20 years. And then recently, about 8 years ago, went to actnano to try something a little bit different at a smaller company with a unique technology that focused around PCBs and integrated circuits, which I was quite familiar with. The chemistry side was a little bit unique, but of course we have chemical PhDs on staff to assist with that.
Right. So I would assume there was some uncertainty or risk involved in you jumping from maybe more stable, established companies that are offering, well-known products and services to sort of a startup. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, great question. So, yes, my family was getting older. I wanted to try something unique and different at a smaller company, maybe where I could have more of an impact and bring my experience in the semiconductor world, working with automotive customers, telecommunications. I lived in the Bay Area for about 8 years. So I felt like I was well rounded on the PCB electronics design standpoint. And then in living in Michigan, definitely well rehearsed with the automotive sector as well. And then this opportunity afforded me the opportunity to work at a smaller company and yet leverage my electrical background with my automotive experience, because that was a market we wanted to focus on initially as we grew the company and establish itself from first generation coatings to now we're on basically our fourth generation coatings, and really grow our portfolio around automotive and then branch out into newer markets, which is basically where we are in our evolution as a company today.
I see. So are you looking for um, just new applications of the existing product, or are you looking at new spaces and developing new chemistries to kind of modify the coating to fit that space?
Yeah, I would say both. Certainly, the electronics world is changing at a rapid pace, and they're experiencing problems that current technology is unable to accommodate. And secondly, the technology is just moving so fast that there's a whole breadth of new problems that they're trying to resolve. So I'll give you an example. For autonomous driving, they're becoming basically servers on wheels, and they're using very high-end processors, which need to be liquid cooled. And when you liquid cool them, you create a temperature difference, and you often create a lot of condensation in your local environment.
I see.
So now you have to protect, if you're going to have a module that might cost several thousands of dollars, of course you want to protect that against the condensation it's actually producing itself. So protecting 100% of the board is nearly a requirement. And doing that with legacy technology is very challenging, if not impossible.
Wow. I mean, it's just fascinating to me that, they were pushing these servers on wheels out with, without the proper, yeah, protection, that they weren't able to come up with something to do that. It's amazing. So what was actnano's kind of approach to solving this problem? I guess, you know, and I know you weren't necessarily there from the start, but you probably know some of the story of like how the problem was identified and why you guys thought you could create a solution for it.
Yeah, I think it might benefit you and some of the listeners to take a step back a little bit. We were founded in 2012, and our goal, Taimur Ahmed is our CEO and founder. He came from a manufacturing background and saw how challenging the existing conformal coating process was for honestly limited upside and benefit. So
Mm-hmm.
he decided, hey, I think there's a better way. So he founded the company, and the goal was to create a fluorine-free, PFAS-free, halogen-free, basically an environmentally friendly coating to be hydrophobic and repel water and
Mm-hmm.
repel environmental conditions. So our first product, hence actnano, was in, and we still ship this in volume today, was roughly about somewhere between 100 nanometers to 1 micron in thickness. And how we quickly found out that protecting against these challenging automotive environments can be difficult at this thickness. So we went through another generation of coatings and created a much more robust coating to
Okay.
repel against higher levels of salt, longer durations of humidity, even immersion in water.
I
So now
see.
we've started on this path of most of our coatings are in the, I'll call it 10 micron to maybe 50 micron range,
Okay.
depending on level of protection you're looking for.
Okay.
And along this path, as we started working with our automotive customers, that's really when the autonomous market, the first, I would say, generation of autonomous was coming to light. And they were running into all kinds of challenges with condensation and even coolant immersion challenges. So that's kind of how we got positioned into this. Hey, we feel like we found a niche here with autonomous driving and very challenging, complex PCB design that need to be exposed to these challenging environmental conditions.
Right. Okay. Is the coating, is it sprayed, painted on, dipped?
Yeah, so we have a different application methods, certainly. The most common, I would say, would spray technique. And one of our unique benefits is by spraying from a higher height than normal. We usually about 80 millimeters, which is pretty high from an automated coating machine perspective. So this gives us the ability to spray wider widths and spray larger areas of the board faster. And
Okay.
backtracking to, because we are able to spray 100% of the board with few keep outs, we're just trying to protect the board and move as quickly as possible. So often this leads to manufacturing advantages of lower cycle times, fewer machines, fewer, I would say, smaller footprint in the manufacturing facility itself. So a whole host of manufacturing advantages, even though we bring a technical advantage to the long-term reliability.
Okay, got it, got it. So when you have the, the next series or the next family of products where you're trying to lay a thicker coating down, are you essentially just increasing the viscosity of that of the material? So
Oh, good
so it
question.
lays on.
No, actually, we spray in layers. So the
Okay.
viscosity is very thin. The viscosity of the material is less than water. So it goes down, and what it does is kind of spreads very evenly. And we even have the unique ability to put material very close to ICs and use the capillary effect to wick underneath components.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
that's how we get three-dimensional protection. We can put what we call undercoating
Hmm.
underneath EGAs, underneath components, and then come back and put a two-dimensional spray on top. And now you have a three-dimensional protection strategy on top of your PCB.
Very interesting. Okay. Um, Have you, this is a weird question, but I was just thinking about it because I was having this conversation with another guy that's, developing some electronics technology and talking about how there's a lot of, you know, electromagnetic interference issues inside of electronics sometimes. I wondered if there was ever like if there is an application for that with actnano, or like if there's been a consideration to somehow include other properties in these coatings that might have EMF properties or other sorts of properties.
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a very strong product development team, and I can say we're looking at options to build off of our foundation.
Yeah,
I'm not able to speak to that here, but yeah, these are some of the things we're looking at.
yeah. So sometimes I ask these questions in the podcast, and people are like, "Yeah, we're working on that, but we're not going to say it."
It's a great idea, Nate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. I'm a good idea guy. I'm in marketing, so that's kind of where my brain goes. Um, So, obviously the EV electrical vehicle market has had some disruption lately and some uncertainty, and certainly the expiration of the EV tax credit has significantly impacted EV sales.
Mhm.
Uh, what are you guys seeing out of that, and how are you responding to it?
I would say that our business is very elastic and it's very fluid. So as it migrates to EV, we have
Good
some
word.
unique, electronics applications that are specific to electric vehicles that we can certainly protect, whether it's battery system management and these types of things. But the core of where the market is going in general for automotive is more L2 plus, L3 autonomous driving. And that's universal, whether we're talking EVs or ICE, internal combustion engine type environments. So that piece is definitely moving forward across both areas. And then, of course, we have unique applications specific to ICE vehicles and then others specific to EVs. So we cover both areas. Wherever the market's going, we have a growth path. But I would say, from my experience and working directly with many OEMs, The long-term path is EV, although it's taken a little bit of a step back in the short term. I do believe that's the path for most OEMs in the future.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So a lot of times when you're dealing with a pretty established market like automotive, and you've got a new product that you want to introduce to this market, it's going to be a better option for them. It's going to solve some of their problems, but they have a very I don't know, a lot of red tape involved with introducing a new product or process into their existing supply chain. How do you go about that? Like, how do you get in front of these guys and convince them that this is going to be good for them?
Very good question. And I really think it depends on who you're speaking with. And ours is a very complex sale. We're trying to turn a ship that's been going one direction for a long time and show them the light of a newer technology on a young company. I think we're beyond a startup, but we're still a young company with a unique technology. I think over the last 5 years, we've come a long way. And luckily for us, as I mentioned previously, the technology is merging with our technology, so it's almost becoming a requirement where these companies are searching for solutions and land on us. So at the beginning, it was very much us beating down doors, proving our technology, trying to convince them to give us an opportunity to do a side by side competitive analysis
Hmm.
and business case. And then many times we could win one off. And now it's switched so much in the last 3 to 5 years that we're working directly with automotive and consumer and different markets where they come to us and say, hey, here's our list of challenges. What do you have to solve problems A, B, C? And then we go through a long-term validation plan. And it's still a long-term from initiation to production, but definitely the OEMs are more open to working with our types of smaller type companies because we're solving unique challenges for them.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think you are fortunate to be in a space where these OEMs are already aware of the issue and they've struggled with it, and so they would go out there looking for new solutions. I've talked to some guys recently who, they are solving a problem, but it's more on the level of we're not, the OEMs aren't aware of the problem to the extent that, this entrepreneur is. And one of the things we discussed was kind of that process of educating engineers,
Mhm.
because they're the ones that are making these specifications. They're sending out they're making the drawings and they specify the various coatings, et cetera. And so I wondered if that's been part of your strategy at all, is somehow educating on a broad scale engineers of your product so that they can specify it when they're designing.
Absolutely. Reliability engineers, they see the field issues and what's coming back. And
Right.
that's usually a good door opener for us of, okay, we have these really high volume products. Maybe this is your bread and butter. Bring me your most challenging application and where you're struggling the most. Let's fix that. And then you'll get used to working with us. You'll get used to our technology, realize all the benefits it brings at the field and reliability phase, but also on the manufacturing side, where we believe we can offer enhanced protection at a lower overall solution cost. So once they realize this, we have a strong strategy for land and expand, where once we get integrated with one or two applications, it often becomes a cut and paste to newer generation products for our customer base. And it becomes a long term relationship. But opening doors can be challenging. Bringing new technology to the table can be challenging. And it really depends on who you're speaking with. As you mentioned, engineers are one, the purchasing department is another. Maybe we get an introduction from a existing relationship we have at a contract manufacturer that's had success with our technology, and they have issues where they roll it up to their customers and say, hey, we're having issues. Why don't you try this new technology? It's been great for us, and we think it can solve a lot of your problems.
Would you be able to walk me through, just because I want to understand a little bit more about that process and who I'm kind of stepping into the shoes of here is, an entrepreneur, a startup company that has, some sort of revolutionary technology that they've developed. And just from step one, like, what are you doing to get in front of an automotive market? Who are you reaching out to? What are you saying? What do you need to show them? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's application by application, but often I try not to go in with pre-canned, here's my sales pitch, let me do what I can do for you, because each customer has its own unique set of challenges. So what I try to do is come in and just understand what those challenges are and have an open conversation of, before I get into my technology, you tell me where your biggest challenges are and what keeps you up at night, what's holding you back, and hopefully we can solve those. And then I'll go back to the drawing table and say, okay, here's what I can do for you. They're much more willing to go down a validation path if you're solving a real problem than just come in and say, hey, I have a new product that might be very interesting to you. Let me walk through my slide deck, and then it's, thanks for your time, and move on. I really want to build a long-term relationship, and that's purely by solving problems for my customer. So understanding where they're coming from is a key to opening the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But on the other hand, too, I'm just picturing, a cold approach saying, I want to take your time to understand your challenges.
Mhm.
And their response is, yeah, well, I mean, that's too many steps to think about. Like, you got to be more specific than that with me. And so, like, I assume that while you're wanting to listen to their challenges, you've already probably got a pretty good idea of what they are, and you're kind of including that in the initial pitch, I guess you could say.
I do, and I have a canned pitch that's ready to go, but really understanding where they're coming from, because we win for different reasons. We win, and again, it points back to who am I speaking with? Maybe the engineer is saying, hey, I'm having field issues. I got to solve this problem. I'm on the phone with the OEM every day to solve this problem. Please help me. So this is more performance and technology based. And I really want to understand that up front. Others, it might be, hey, if you can end up taking a quarter out of my cost, this, I'm really on a cost savings exercise. And if you can help me save cost, then that's something I can likely validate, and we can put on a path to production. Okay, well, at least I know you're coming from this from a cost standpoint. Maybe I'm talking to the contract manufacturer and he says, my cycle times are killing me. My line is very complex. I have to shut it down for maintenance and cleaning and all these things. Okay, well, let me simplify your manufacturing process. So it really depends on who I'm speaking with and what their care abouts are and what they're going to value the most. And that's kind of how I tailor the pitch based on the audience.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. So if we take even a step earlier, step back from there, even once again, putting myself in the shoes of this guy who's never done it before, who never got in front of an established industry like automotive. What's your initial strategy for getting a contact there who's even willing to listen to you?
Yeah, I guess initially when I started, it's 25 years of just experience and
Right.
knowing a lot of people in the industry. Today we have a whole strategic growth initiative team that's what they do, is break into new markets, and this is growing our network. We're well established at the certainly in automotive, but even other markets from the OEM perspective, the tier one level, and even the contract manufacturer level globally. But of course, we're growing our business, and getting initiatives into new customers is always a challenge. So we do trade shows, and that's a good
Okay.
exposure into some
Yep.
new markets, into maybe AI and data servers. Maybe it's the SMTA show, and they gain exposure for us, and we have some really cool demos that often attracts a lot of audience members. If it's a Nintendo Switch working underwater, and you can actually run a Mario Kart while
Yep.
the module is immersed in water. Or it might be a PCB with coolant running all over it and showing how it can work under these harsh conditions. So yeah, we've seen some good success out of trade shows as well.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, because I think the visual impact of those things, if you can get somebody to see it work, it's gonna spark some interest. Have you used anything else? So you got trade shows, maybe from a digital perspective. Are you having any success with maybe YouTube demo videos, kind of addressing questions engineers might have, or things like that?
We do. We have a few YouTube videos out there. Our marketing department is certainly growing, and we're being more digitally conscious of
Yep.
growing our brand through cyberspace and just the internet in general.
Yep.
But I do believe uh, relationships is where we see a lot. We see a lot of engineers move from company to company, and they're like, "Hey, I worked with you at XYZ. Now I'm at this company.
Yep.
They're having all kinds of challenges. Can you come in and pitch my new team on the benefits of your company?" So again, a
Okay.
little bit of that land and expand strategy that crosses borders, if you will, from company to company. But
Yep.
also the contract manufacturer network, the large CMs, they have very broad reaches, and they see the value of our technology, and they often make a lot of introductions into new markets and new customers as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Actually, that makes a ton of sense to kind of focus on the PCB, PCBA manufacturers. If you can educate them, they're going to educate, the end users or the OEMs.
That's absolutely right. And there's a top-down approach of working with the OEMs. They're not going to approve anything unless they validate it, but they
Yep.
can get recommendations. So bottom up works as well, but it's
Hmm.
a long cycle, right? So you get the introduction, you get an opportunity, but advocating for us at the contract manufacturer level is really important. It's very important for our sale because it only takes one no, and it could be at the OEM, it could be at the CM, it could be at purchasing. So you
Hmm.
have to get a lot of yeses in order to switch to a newer technology like ours. So it's very important that our sales and commercial efforts and even our technical team spends a lot of bandwidth and cycles educating and working closely with each level of the sale to make sure
Interesting.
they're comfortable and say, yes, this is something we want to do.
That's a really good point. I really like that. And I feel like a lot of companies probably don't do a good enough job of understanding everybody that has the ability to sign off or not sign off on something, and making sure they're all educated. Very interesting.
And it's a global world, right? So it's important that our team communicates well internally to say, hey, can you touch base with this CM in Taiwan and half of the design centers in Germany, and then the prototypes are in Mexico, but there's also a satellite design team in Seattle. And
Mm.
making sure that this all works in concert is very important.
Wow. Okay. How many salespeople do you have in this pretty massive worldwide effort?
So, globally, we're a company of roughly about 100 people. I'd
Okay.
say probably about 40% of that is commercial driven.
Okay.
And it's very important, as I mentioned, for our commercial team members to be um, well respected and have some education going into these OEMs and build some confidence in these discussions with the OEM, with the tier one, with the contract manufacturer. So we've really done a good job of hiring some critical people, and everyone's highly skilled and definitely motivated to drive the company forward.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and certainly, even if you have the greatest product in the world, if you can't go into that company and speak their language
Mhm.
and understand what they do, and be able to use terminology that resonates with them, it's going to be difficult to make that sale. I can
Absolutely.
understand that. Yeah. So being involved in a global market, and obviously, there's electronics manufacturers throughout the world that could be using your product. What trends has there been any interesting, surprising trends in the past year or so where like, wow, I can't believe that this country has this much of that, or, just something interesting about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of macro level trends and even I would say specific market trends that are happening rather rapidly. I don't think it's any secret that there's a lot of manufacturing moving to Mexico, moving to India, maybe even moving to Southeast Asia. So that is a trend we're seeing as well,
Yep.
where maybe we could much more focus on China, which is critically important to our overall business still. But we're also seeing Taiwan and Thailand and Vietnam, Indonesia, India, Mexico, even Eastern Europe is a growing hub for manufacturing for European
Hmm.
PCBs. So all these markets are important that they're properly staffed. We have satellite offices in each of these regions to make sure we can accommodate local prototyping, answer technical questions, and then, of course, commercial support.
Right. Okay. Is there what market in your perspective is growing the fastest? Do you have any idea of that?
Well, specific to our business, it's a toss up. Certainly, automotive. We took a concerted effort to focus on automotive, like I touched on earlier, and we felt if we could be successful in automotive, we could branch out into other markets, and that's where we're growing to now. But we've gone through different generations of coatings to be very to understand the automotive market very well. We have a lot of data backing us up. We have some excellent relationships. So, although we're branching out into other markets, our automotive business is growing so fast that it'll continue to be a lion's share of our revenue probably for the foreseeable future. Even though we have some excellent and big markets coming up behind it, our automotive exposure continues to expand rapidly.
Okay. Have you guys, I've talked to some companies that are in the materials development space, and some of them are, really leveraging AI to kind of sift through different compositions and to, kind of create some new innovative coatings and materials. How much are you guys leveraging AI?
Yeah, we definitely leverage it for, as you mentioned, on meeting customers and trying to do market analysis and these types of things. I can't
Yep.
really speak to how we're using that within like product development for next generation products,
Right.
but definitely we're hooked into AI from a business standpoint, marketing standpoint. That's a tool in our toolbox.
Okay. If you had one piece of advice for a innovative startup that wants to really grow their product base, get in with OEMs, what would that piece of advice be?
I really liked our approach. It's been successful, specifically for us, of focus on something, solving a unique problem in maybe even a unique market. If you try to do everything for everyone, it can be often very challenging, and you're not going to have one single product that covers this entire landscape. So if you can
Right.
focus on a market, maybe not a specific customer in one unique niche issue, but understand that it's a broad market wide problem, and I can solve this under these set of criteria, get these certifications, and go down this path and be successful. Then I can always build off of that. So I would try not to paint with too broad of a brush up front,
Right.
and maybe not be laser focused, but try to go into it a little bit focused on a specific market to solve a unique problem.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. A lot of times when you're early in business, you've recently started a company, you say yes to everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll do that project. Yeah, I'll do that project. And as you get older in business, you start to say, okay, what I'm really good at is working with this type of customer, doing this type of a thing, and then you start to really get rid of all of those other things. So I think that laser focus, maybe not laser focus like you said, but try to stay focused on an industry, focused on a use case, at least when you're getting started, and kind of expand from there. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's worked for us. Of course, as you grow your portfolio, you're going to try things, and not everything's going to work. So you just kind of put it on the back shelf. And we've even had things that put on the back shelf, and then 3 years later, another customer comes up and it's relevant again. So
Right.
you never know where that leads you, but yeah, that would be try to pick a market that you can focus on. You have some experience with, you have good contacts in, you can get good feedback with, and even maybe get a partner who's willing to collaborate and go through some of those growing pains with you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And in a underestimated component of that market focus too is kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, is in order to be able to communicate your sales offer correctly, you need to be able to understand that market and be able to talk to them about their own operation and use their terminology and stuff like that. So like with my business, I've had a lot of success in the manufacturing space because manufacturers always excited and impressed that I know what a 5-axis machine is, and I can speak their language. And so I think having that market focus is really good for that. So I always like to wrap up with a segment that just kind of focused on what have you been looking for. Are there any resources that you've kind of had your eye out for, whether it be type of employee you're looking for, new salespeople, maybe there's a specific part of your business that you aren't quite sure what to do with, automation or technology, things like that. Is there anything you've been kind of thinking about or looking for?
Yeah, we continue to expand, and that's something we evaluate of, is it best to grow maybe through a distribution network and hire distributors who might have local relationships and be able to open doors for you a little bit faster,
Yep.
and expand into some newer markets that we've had limited to no exposure with to date. So that's something that we're continuing to evaluate. We do well, fairly well in North America. Our North America team is growing, including Mexico. Europe is something that's we're continuing to invest in, and we're seeing a lot of new opportunities there. Asia is probably almost 40 or 50% of our team size, so that's another region
Mm.
that continues to do very well, and we continue to invest there. But I would say new markets, like I said, Vietnam, Japan is a growing market for us. India, we've had a team there for about 18 months and now an office. So these
Mm.
are regions we've really invested in, but I think we have a long way to go to cover the entire planet, and that's
Right.
something we evaluate very closely.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I guess what you were saying is, if there was somebody that has those distribution capabilities that might be interested in repping your products, that's the type of person you might be interested in talking to.
Yeah, smaller distributors. We have both. We have small distributors. We have very large distributors. We hire direct as well. We've had
Yep.
success with hiring direct. We want somebody to wake up every day. How are we gonna push our opportunities and grow actnano? We want them thinking about that. Sometimes with some distributors, you can get a little bit watered down
Right.
based on their portfolio. So it is a complex sale, and we want to make sure we're partnered with the right people. But yeah, distribution is something we look at very closely for growth areas into new regions.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Jeremy, this is very insightful. I think you offered some great advice on really approaching those large OEMs, just on the materials innovation and sort of your process for selling. So I really appreciate you coming on today, and I enjoyed our talk.
Thanks for having me, Nate. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.